A 15-year-old kid was busking on Sunset Boulevard in 1988, butchering Michael Jackson's "Don't Stop Till You Get Enough" on his beat-up guitar, when a black sedan pulled up and the king of pop himself stepped out. What happened next wasn't captured by paparazzi or news cameras, just a raw, unguarded moment between a superstar at his peak and a street musician with nothing to lose. But here's what everyone really wants to know. What did Michael Jackson whisper to that kid that made him break down in tears? Neon light from Tower Records bleeds pink and blue across the wet asphalt of Sunset Boulevard, painting the night in electric hues that pulse with the heartbeat of Los Angeles. It's October 1988, and the city hums with an energy that only comes when history's biggest star is in town. Steam rises from manholes like ghostly fingers reaching toward a sky thick with smog and possibility, while the distant sound of helicopters cuts through the night air. Paparazzi circling the Beverly Hills Hotel, where Michael Jackson is supposedly holed up between shows of his record-breaking Bad World Tour. All of Los Angeles feels like it's holding its breath, waiting for a glimpse of the man who moonwalked into immortality. Radio stations play his hits on endless rotation. Billboards tower over Melrose Avenue advertising sold-out dates at Dodger Stadium, and bootleg t-shirt vendors work the corners with merchandise that bears his silhouette. Everyone wants a piece of the king of pop, but he remains as elusive as smoke, protected by layers of security and secrecy that keep the world at arm's length. But here, 3 blocks away from the chaos of tourist buses and autograph seekers, the world feels different. Smaller, more honest. The sounds of distant traffic fade into white noise, replaced by something more intimate, more real. A teenager sits cross-legged against the brick wall of a closed music shop, his fingers dancing across the worn frets of an acoustic guitar that's seen better decades. The instrument bears scars from years of use, scratches in the wood, worn spots where countless hands have gripped the neck, strings that have been replaced so many times the tuning pegs are loose with age. The case at his feet holds maybe $12 in crumpled bills and scattered coins. Not enough for a decent meal, but enough to keep him going another day. A cardboard sign propped against the case reads, "Music for Food," in careful block letters, the edges softened by morning dew and evening rain. This is Marcus Chen's office, his stage, his sanctuary in a city that devours dreamers and spits out their bones. Marcus doesn't know that his life is about to change forever. He only knows that when he plays, the hunger gnawing at his stomach fades into background noise, and the ache of sleeping in doorways disappears entirely. Tonight he's working through "Don't Stop Till You Get Enough," though his version lacks the funk and polish of the original that dominates the airwaves. His voice cracks on the high notes, his timing wavers like a candle flame in the wind, but there's raw authenticity in his interpretation that cuts through the urban noise like a prayer whispered in a cathedral. The boy's passion is intense, unfiltered, real in a way that the overproduced music industry has almost forgotten how to be. Each chord rings with the desperation of someone who has nothing left to lose and everything to prove. Someone who believes that music might be the only thing standing between him and complete invisibility in a city full of invisible people. A black sedan with windows dark as midnight creeps down the boulevard, moving slower than traffic should allow, its driver navigating between late-night pedestrians and delivery trucks with practiced precision. The driver glances nervously in his rearview mirror at his passenger, who hasn't spoken in 20 minutes, hasn't moved except to occasionally shift position in the leather seats that cost more than most people make in a month. Behind them, a second car maintains careful distance, security that never sleeps, shadows that never rest, protection that follows like a second skin. The music drifts through the crack in the sedan's window, imperfect but passionate, and an energy awakens in the darkness of the back seat. Inside the sedan, Michael Jackson sits in shadow, his slight frame dwarfed by the leather seats that cost more than most people make in a year. The fedora pulled low over his eyes can't hide the exhaustion etched into every line of his face. 3 hours ago, he finished a grueling rehearsal for tomorrow night's sold-out show at Dodger Stadium, the 15th show of a tour that feels like it might never end. His left hand trembles almost imperceptibly, a tremor that started weeks ago and won't stop. The pills in his jacket pocket promise relief from the chronic back pain that radiates down his spine like lightning, but they bring their own weight. their own shadows. He's supposed to be at a meeting right now with Sony executives, discussing numbers and projections and strategies for maximizing profits from a tour that's already broken every record in the books. But the boy's music has found its way through the armor of fame, through the walls of glass and steel that separate Michael Jackson, the icon, from the man who just wants to remember what it felt like to sing for the joy of it. The kid doesn't know the words perfectly, doesn't hit every note, but there's pure emotion in his voice that Michael hasn't heard in his own music for years. Freedom. The weight of perfection sits on Michael's shoulders like a lead blanket. Every note he sings is scrutinized, every dance move analyzed frame by frame. The tabloids dissect his appearance with surgical precision, manufacturing stories about his changing face, his reclusiveness, his eccentricities. They don't write about the sleepless nights, the pressure to be superhuman, the way fame can make you feel like a ghost haunting your own life. Through the window, he watches Marcus fumble with the chord progression, laugh at his own mistake, and start again. When was the last time Michael had laughed at a missed note? When had he last allowed himself to be imperfect, to be human, to be anything other than the king of pop? His security chief's voice crackles through the intercom. "Mr. Jackson, we really need to get moving. The executives are waiting, and we've got 3 more stops after that." Michael's finger hovers over the button, but he doesn't respond. Instead, he watches the boy's face as he sings the bridge, eyes closed, lost in the music the way Michael used to get lost before the world decided to watch his every breath. The kid's guitar case holds those same $12, but his spirit holds genuine connection Michael has spent millions trying to recapture. The tremor in his hand stops. For the first time in months, something inside him feels still, focused. The boy starts the song over again, and this time Michael's lips move silently along with the words, remembering not the choreography or the marketing strategy or the critical reception, but the simple truth that made him fall in love with music in the first place. His hand finds the door handle again, and this time, he doesn't hesitate. The door of the sedan opens with barely a whisper, but the sound cuts through the night air like a blade through silk. Michael's Italian leather shoes touch the pavement with deliberate care, each step measured and graceful despite the weight pressing down on his shoulders. The fedora sits low on his brow, casting shadows across features millions have analyzed frame by frame. But here in the amber streetlight, he looks smaller somehow, more vulnerable. Marcus hits another wrong chord and chuckles to himself, shaking his head as he adjusts his grip on the guitar neck. "Come on, man, you got this," he mutters under his breath, positioning his fingers for another attempt at the opening progression. The words to "Don't Stop Till You Get Enough" flow from his lips in a voice that cracks with adolescence but rings with genuine emotion. Then, in hushed tones, another voice joins in from behind him. "Lovely is the feelin' now." The words hang in the air like a spell, perfectly pitched, impossibly familiar. Marcus's fingers freeze on the frets, his voice trailing off mid-syllable. The guitar nearly slips from his lap as he turns around, his eyes widening until they seem to take up half his face. Standing 10 feet away, hands clasped behind his back with an almost childlike shyness, is Michael Jackson. Not the glittering, sequined figure from the concert posters plastered across the city, but something quieter, more real. The black jacket is simple, unadorned. The fedora casts gentle shadows. But the eyes, those eyes hold galaxies of experience, of pain, of music that has moved millions. "Oh my God," Marcus whispers, the words barely audible. "Oh my I mean." Time crawls to a standstill. Somewhere in the distance, car doors slam as security personnel scramble to assess this unplanned deviation from the schedule. A woman walking her dog 50 yards away stops mid-stride, recognizing something even through the shadows. A couple emerges from a late-night diner, their conversation dying as they follow her gaze. Michael takes a step closer, his movement seamlessly graceful. "Don't stop," he says gently, nodding toward the guitar. "You were just getting to the good part." Marcus's hands shake as he looks down at the instrument in his lap, then back up at the man who wrote the song he's been butchering for the past hour. I don't think I'm doing it right." "I mean, you would know, right? It's your..." "Music belongs to everyone once it's out there," Michael interrupts, his voice carrying the weight of someone who has learned this truth through years of watching strangers make his songs their own. "Show me what you hear when you play it." The security chief appears at the edge of the sidewalk, speaking urgently into his radio. A small crowd begins to gather, not the screaming masses of a concert venue, but curious night owls drawn by the impossible sight of the planet's most celebrated entertainer standing on a street corner as if he were ordinary. Marcus's throat feels dry as desert sand. His fingers find the chords again, muscle memory taking over where consciousness fails. But this time, when he begins to sing, his voice wavers not with uncertainty, but with the weight of witnessing something extraordinary unfold in the most ordinary of places. Without ceremony, without the fanfare that follows his every public appearance, Michael Jackson sits down on the curb next to Marcus Chun. The concrete is cold and damp from the earlier rain, and somewhere behind them, his security chief makes a sound like a man watching his carefully constructed plans crumble into dust. "May I?" Michael extends his hand toward the guitar, and Marcus passes it over with the reverence of someone handing over a sacred relic. The instrument looks different in Michael's grip, not just a collection of wood and strings, but an extension of profound resonance, music that has been singing long before either of them was born. Michael's fingers find the frets with the confidence of someone who learned music the same way other people learn to breathe. The opening chords of "Don't Stop Till You Get Enough" flow from the guitar with crystalline clarity, each note precisely where it needs to be, the rhythm pulsing like a heartbeat. When he begins to sing, his voice carries none of the studio polish or concert theatrics, just pure, unfiltered music that seems to rise from the pavement itself. The small crowd that has gathered stays respectfully back, sensing that they are witnessing something private despite its public setting. A few hold up small cameras, but most simply watch, understanding instinctively that some moments are meant to be experienced rather than captured. When the song ends, Michael hands the guitar back to Marcus, but this time he guides the boy's fingers to the correct positions, his touch gentle as a teacher with a beloved student. "Feel the groove," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. "Don't think about the notes. Think about the feeling you want to share." Marcus tries again, and this time the chords ring true. His voice, while still young and untrained, carries something new: confidence, joy, the understanding that music is not about perfection but about connection. As he sings, Michael's voice weaves underneath his, creating harmonies that transform the simple street corner into a concert hall. When they finish, the small crowd erupts in applause that echoes off the surrounding buildings. But Michael's attention remains focused on the boy beside him, seeing something in Marcus's face that reminds him of his own reflection decades ago, before the fame, before the pressure, when music was still magic instead of merchandise. Michael reaches into his jacket and withdraws his wallet, emptying its contents into the guitar case. Bills cascade downward, hundreds, not once. Then he pulls out something else, a photograph from his pocket, one of the professional headshots his team distributes, but this one bears something rare, his personal signature in silver ink. He leans close to Marcus, his voice so quiet that even the nearest onlookers cannot hear. "People will attempt to define who you are," he whispers. "Don't let them. Keep the music alive, and it will keep you alive." Marcus's eyes fill with tears as he clutches the photograph, understanding that he is holding not just an autograph, but a benediction, a passing of something precious from one musician to another. Michael stands, adjusting his fedora with a gesture so familiar it seems choreographed, but his movements carry the weight of a man who has just given away a piece of his soul and found himself lighter for it. As he walks back toward the waiting sedan, the crowd separates instinctively, their earlier excitement tempered by the recognition that they have witnessed something sacred. The car door closes with the same whisper it opened with, and the sedan glides back into the river of Los Angeles traffic, carrying its passenger toward obligations and expectations that wait for no one, not even the king of pop. Marcus sits alone on the curb, the guitar across his knees, the photograph in his trembling hands. 20 years later, he will be a successful session musician, his name on albums that go platinum, but he will never forget the night when the most famous man in the world reminded him that music is not about fame or fortune, but about the simple, revolutionary act of sharing your heart with a stranger.